Hello and welcome back to the world of the spirit consciousness. This is a continuation of the book study session on the astral body and other astral phenomena. We are now in the middle of the 11th module, which discusses the astral plane. In this particular video section, we shall be discussing the description of the various seven subplanes. So diving right through into our topic, this has been divided into subparts. So there are broad groupings which we will broadly understand how these groupings are made and the underlying rationale behind them. Then we will discuss the seventh plane in detail, followed by the discussion on the sixth, fifth, and the fourth plane. And that will be proceeded with a discussion on the third, second, and the first plane. Coming to understanding of the broad groupings, so the seven subdivisions are clearly divided into three groups, which is the lowest or the seventh, then the sixth, fifth, and the fourth, and the third, second, and the first. The members of one group vary like two solids, for example, sand and steel. The three groups vary like the states of matter, for example, solid, liquid, and gaseous. So to explain this, let's call it the astral plane, and we have three groupings over here. So these groupings are in the nature of, say, for example, solid, liquid, and gas. And the subdivisions over here are the plane subplanes, which could vary like sand and steel, for instance. Having understood the rationale behind the broad groupings, let us go on to understand the seventh plane. So this plane has physical plane in the background, although only an altered and partial view of it can be seen because all the good things appear invisible in this plane. The scribe Annie gave a detailed explanation of it in the Egyptian papyrus 4000 years ago. So Annie goes on to speak like this: What manner of place is this unto which I have come? It hath no water, it hath no air, it is deep, unfathomable. It is black as the blackest night, and men wander helplessly about therein. In it, a man may not live in the quietness of heart. So the unlucky ones in this subplane truly experience that all of the earth is full of darkness and cruel habitation. Actually, it is their own darkness which radiates and makes their lives everlastingly cruel. This night of horror appears very real, but like all the hells, this too is completely created by people themselves. The study of this plane is very uncomfortable to majority of students because it seems to have a thick and coarse materiality. This is extremely unpleasant to the liberated astral body. This is because the liberated astral body gets a feeling as if it is pushing through some black sticky moisture, which also consists of terrible occupants and influences. The densest astral matter is way too dense for normal astral life, just like in the physical plane. However, the former has its own forms which the students of the surface are not aware of. Ordinary individuals are unlikely to stay on the seventh subplane. Usual people whose consciousness awakens here are people with cruel and gross desires, for example, vicious criminals, sensualists, drunkards, etc. So having discussed the seventh plane, let us go on to see the sixth, fifth, and the fourth plane. So the sixth, fifth, and the fourth subplanes have a physical world background which is familiar to us. The sixth subplane has a life similar to ours in physical world, but without physical matter and its requirements. The fifth and the fourth subplanes are less material and more withdrawn from the lower world and its attractions. They don't give much significance to physical connections. They are more likely to build their surroundings based on their determined thoughts. Finally, coming to the third, second, and the first plane. So, third, second, and the first subplanes are in the same space as physical but appear more withdrawn from it and hence less earthly. On these three levels of subplanes, entities disconnect from the earth and its happenings. They are more self absorbed and build their own environment to a large extent. However, they are open minded to be visible to other entities and are somewhat awakened to the realities of this plane, but live in fictional locations partially from self created thoughts and partially from formations created by their forerunners. One can find here the joyful hunting grounds of the Red Indians, the Norsemen's Valhalla, the Muslim paradise full of houris, the Christian Golden Gate of New Jerusalem filled with jewels, the materialistic reformers' heaven full of Lyceum, and the spiritualist summerland with cities, houses, schools, etc., which are temporarily real but unfortunately not the same as thought by the happy creator. So, however, a lot of such creations are extremely beautiful, but they are temporary. Someone who is not aware of the higher might happily roam around them because, anyway, they're far better than anything in the physical world. Otherwise, she or he might even choose to create their own scenery based on their imagination. On the second plane, especially reside the self centered and unspiritual religionists. They wear a golden crown and worship their own crude portrayal of the deity worship in their country and time. The first subplane is especially occupied by those who dedicated themselves to materialistic but intellectual pursuits on the physical plane, but for selfish purposes or intellectual activity rather than helping others. These individuals remain on this subplane for several years, satisfied with solving intellectual issues, but make very slight progress towards the heaven world and are of no help to anyone. However, individuals of this atomic subplane don't create imaginary structures like those at the lower levels do. Scientific minded people and the thinkers make use of almost all their astral powers to study because they can come down to the physical world within some limits. Hence, they can descend on the astral equivalent of a physical book and get the required information from it. They can easily touch an author's mind, influence his/her ideas, and receive his/hers in return. At times, these beings significantly delay their ascent to the heaven world by passionately studying and experimenting in the astral world. So with this, we've finished the description of the seven subplanes. Our next video will be a description on other miscellaneous phenomena. Stay tuned.